that we are back, and hopefully you can hear Tim now.
Hopefully.
Okay. So Mike cut all this,
okay.
so I'm going to just go ahead and redo our intro here for the audio listeners. So Mike, starting at 4 minutes on the audio podcast, we will be starting for the audio format. Sorry for the Twitch viewers. Bear with me for a second. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Coin Drop podcast. This is beta episode number 11, and it's a damn good thing it is. We have Tim with us, as always. Tim, how's your week?
Repeating myself again. It was a decent week. I had no troubles, other than it was Friday. I got really sick and started feeling better this morning, and here I am.
Don't peel back the curtain for our audio listeners. We didn't start over. This isn't a start over. This isn't a redo. That's not what happened.
Of course not.
No, of course not.
What are you talking about?
So, first off, our topic for this week, KOTOR got an update. The remake got an update. Kind of a crappy one, if I'm fair.
Excuse me. Keep going.
I would say it wasn't the best update. It was just a, hey, we're still working on it.
I mean, to be fair, when everyone was considering, based on legit rumor and speculation, everyone was considering that it was a dead project never to come back again.
Yeah.
This is a good upgrade, or a good update, because otherwise we were totally like, fuck.
Yeah, I'll give you that. It is nice to have at least that confirmation, especially since they killed the fan project in order to do this remake, and then to kill kill the actual project would be such a bullshit move. I would be pretty fucking pissed. So it's good to know that it is still happening. Here's the crazy thing. So, I was looking back through this. It was announced 2 years ago that it was in the works. We haven't seen anything since, right?
Something like that.
The original game is, as of next year, 20 years old. It came out in 2003. I actually had some B-roll for the original E3 trailer at the beginning of what's on our Twitch. I took that, the BS Sony announcement, and a old cinematic trailer from the MMO KOTOR, the SWOTOR MMO, and stitch them all together. So just kind of fun to see KOTOR through the ages. But it was announced 2 years ago. We haven't heard anything. I'm kind of wondering if they're aiming for a 20-year anniversary release.
That would be, what year would that be?
That'd be next year. That'd be next year. So no, it would be this year. I'm sorry. I'm dumb. It was 2003, the original. So obviously they're going to miss that. Maybe we'll get it by a 25-year anniversary.
I would hope so. That would not be the case.
I would hope so too.
If you look at it, I mean, ultimately they removed it. So if you didn't notice in the trailer for the remake, it was originally going to be made by Asper Media, and that is no longer the case. The only thing that really the update told us was, hey, it's still being made, but it's not being made by them. It's being made in-house now, which we don't exactly know who's making it or what.
Yeah.
So here's hoping that,
The ad said the Embracement Group. I don't know what the hell that is. Do you know what that is?
Embracer Group. Yeah. That's just the name of a development studio. Embracer Group is what it is.
Gotcha. It's a wild name. It sounds like a legal firm.
Yeah, something like that. They're a video game, a Swedish video game and media holding company. They actually bought quite a few different studios a while back, like Saber Interactive. Who else did they buy? THQ Nordic and various other people. Basically, think of them as say EA, who they just own a whole bunch of little developers under them. They're a publishing company, basically.
Okay.
So that's one of their internal development studios, which could be a really good thing. It could also be a really bad thing because they don't own not all of their development studios are fantastic AAA developers. So
gotcha.
I'm just hoping they don't give it to someone not good.
So they did kind of peel back the curtain a little bit on that article. There was some more information in there. They confirmed it's coming to PC as well. It said it said PlayStation 5 and PC. So I think there was speculation prior, but I don't think they ever confirmed PC before.
I'm actually not sure. The original announcment that you will see in here, they show Darth Vader, not Darth Vader, but Revan.
What? How dare you?
Excuse me, I corrected myself. he steps in, and then it just says Knights of the Old Republic. So You never really know.
Yeah, it was at the PlayStation conference at E3 2 years ago, so I'm pretty sure at the time it was PlayStation 5, but it's cool to know that it's still coming. KOTOR is still my favorite Star Wars game of all time. SWTOR is a second winner. It's just hard to play because it's definitely still got a lot of stuff locked behind paywalls and microtransactions and stuff like that, which is just a sign of how old it is and that old way of monetizing MMOs. I wish they would redo it. Yeah.
Basically. Free-to-play MMOs, better.
Yeah. But KOTOR has such a great story. I would love to see it modernized. I was a big fan of the Aperion fan remake that they were doing. I followed that really closely when that was in. I signed the petition to bring it back. So that was something I like. I love this franchise. I would say the closest we've gotten to beating KOTOR would be Jedi Fallen Order. I haven't played Survivor yet, but that was probably the second best Star Wars game I've ever played in my life.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that they manage to do it and do it in a really, I don't know, I guess AAA way. The reason why I say so is because just like it's a gaming sin that you still haven't beaten God of War, I've never beaten this one.
Oh,
and I've actually tried many times. The problem is I didn't have an Xbox when it first came out. I didn't have a capable PC when it first came out. And so by the time I tried to play it, we were in like PlayStation 3 era, something along those lines. And it was really hard to go back to 2 generations past.
It shows its age.
It was really hard to play. Yeah. By then it was like 10 years old, something like that. I mean, I bought it on my cell phone. I bought it on my PC since I bought it just about everywhere multiple times, and I can't force myself to play it.
You're looking at it here, and it's beautiful 4:3 ratio, and it's 280p resolution. Yeah, it's there's mods for it on the PC that clean it up a little bit, but it controls like an old game. It's very old, early BioWare. Like, if you can't do Dragon Age Origins at this day, you're not going to be able to do KOTOR. It's just not an enjoyable gaming experience unless you're already super in love with the game. I'm really hopeful. So how far did you get when you played it? Do you remember? Because I'm curious if you know how much of the story you know.
I have actually been. I mean, it's a 20-year-old game now, right? Or almost. I do know how it ends, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone who doesn't.
That's a shame. I'm real sorry that got spoiled for you.
It is a shame because I've actually practically wished for that to be a game before, a game ending before. And when I found out that this was that, and I was like, darn. Yeah. I wish I would have experienced that fresh. Either way, I'm still excited to play it because it's going to be cool regardless.
Dude, if they implement, and I know it's not EA, right? It's not EA making it, but if they implement the lightsaber customization from Fallen Order or Jedi Survivor, which is even more expansive at this point from my understanding, it's going to be great. Like, they just need to keep those solid RPG aspects to it. They need to keep the lightsaber, the skill tree, that kind of stuff. Like, that game is hands down, dude, it's just one of the best RPGs in the Star Wars universe, in my opinion. And with it being 20 years old at this point, there are people who have lived their whole lives that didn't know it was a game unless they were told. Like, there are 4 full-grown adults who are about to be legal drinking age that have never played KOTOR unless they picked it up and played it within that time.
Yeah. And if they have heard about it, they're going to go, "Oh, that's an ancient game from my dad's time."
Yeah,
they're I don't touch old games. That's no.
Yeah.
So I mean, I agree with you. The fact that Disney has toyed with the idea potentially to make a movie based on this.
Give us a fucking Revan movie.
I just don't understand why they wouldn't, because it's so rife for great content, and it's something that most fans of his movies haven't experienced.
Yeah.
It'd be a really good story, and it would catch everyone off guard. The ending that we're purposefully ignoring. It would catch everyone off guard. It'd be so freaking amazing.
Especially if they did a prequel, right? So they're making a High Republic movie, if I'm not mistaken, or a series or something like that. I can't remember what they're making, but like, they're going back to the High Republic. So it gives them the chance to do a Darth Revan, and they've all but confirmed he exists in the franchise. Like, they've dropped his name numerous.
They've made him canon. He's canon now.
Yeah, they just haven't like come out and
Arnold
said it.
Schwarzenegger?
What?
Sorry, in the trailer, it looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Sorry, I haven't played SWTOR in forever either, but
Yeah.
I didn't realize they implemented the Terminator.
Definitely.
Was he any of the movies?
Revan or
Actor?
oh
No.
what?
Schwarzenegger. I can't remember if he was ever in any because I know they've
Star
implemented
Wars?
a lot of famous actors.
No. Schwarzenegger's never been into Star Wars. That would be pretty awesome if he was. I would put Schwarzenegger up as a Darth Malik. Throw him in there with Revan. That'd be freaking great.
That would work.
I'd love to play SWTOR again, but that's one of the MMOs that I feel like you do have to pay for, even though it's free to play, just to get the best experience out of it. But
yeah, they definitely locked a lot of the good features behind the paywall.
Yeah.
Which is a little unfortunate.
Yeah.
Most MMOs don't do that.
or they just make it not a free to play game, right? Like,
That's really only two of them.
Yeah,
Final Fantasy and WoW.
Yeah, pretty much the only two successful non free to play.
No, Final Fantasy 11 was too. So I guess there's still 3.
Yeah. But yeah, like I'm glad to hear it's not dead. I'm hoping Sony has more to show us.
I'm just really hopeful that they manage to bring it sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
We also can't say Sony. It's obviously got to be Embracer because Sony's not the one making it.
Right.
Although, now that I think about it, I almost want to say that Sony was helping with the development. But
well, I thought so because they were the ones that showed it at their PlayStation conference. I mean, fair, but it is an exclusive to their console as well, so they've got to have some hand in it, right?
Not necessarily. All that means is they could have just paid them to make it exclusive.
Yeah, fair.
This is as much as it takes. But I do want to say that I remember that they were helping with it in some way, but perhaps I'm just remembering.
Maybe just a financial aspect, who knows? But
yeah,
I really would love to see an update on it before the end of the year, or something. Just more than hey, it's still in the works. Like, I appreciate that, but that's not really an update, guys. It doesn't tell us anything. Or are we looking at an Elder Scrolls 6 situation, right? Where it's like
I would actually call it more of Beyond Good and Evil 2 situation.
Ooh,
like, we're doing it 10 years later. That game is now officially been the longest game in development ever.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah. I forgot they still confirmed that they're still making that after they've showed nothing for 5 years?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And they've shown... Yeah, anyway, we're talking about Star Wars, but I'm just hoping it's not that situation.
If it is, dude, they might as well just scrap the project, because by the time it comes out, like, it'll have gone through so many engine changes. Shit, it probably already has gone through engine change from UE4 to UE5 if they're not using their own, proprietary engine. But
there's no way it happened. The game game 15 plus years in development. There's absolutely no.
No. KOTOR remake.
Oh,
yeah.
KOTOR?
I can't imagine at this point that they're making it for UE4. Yeah.
I can see it from 4 to 5, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm actually pulling up the initial announcement back from 2021, and it says that Sony was collaborating on the Star Wars development, and it was supposed to be made by Asper.
Yeah.
It's a Japanese giant. I'm trying to see what it says. The time was finally come, blah, blah, blah. Suggestion was late. It doesn't say anything about the collaboration other than collaboration.
Yeah.
So, who knows what that means?
Yeah.
And the fact that it was pulled away from Asper and internally for Embracer Group, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows if
maybe Asper wasn't up to the challenge, right? Maybe that was that's the only thing I could imagine. The only thing I could hope is they went, hey, you're not ready for this, because isn't Asper part of isn't that part of the Empyrean groups that was like creating the mod? Weren't they brought in for that? I don't remember what the situation was. I know they got an cease and desist when they were working on.
I don't know if Asper was the original developer of the fan remake that was approved by EA, but it would make sense that those people would be brought on because they were already working on something that looked fantastic and they've been doing it for so long.
God, it did look so good.
I don't know. It really did.
They implemented a first-person mode for it too, where you could play in first or third person, and you could they made being a blaster class legitimate and feasible, and it just it was such a great polish. It's just Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean it's always unfortunate when a game gets delayed. like this one does, or it gets removed from one developer and brought to the next. But we can cite actually really recent examples of when it's pulled from one developer and given to another more than once, and it actually turns out well. It's Dead Island 2. Dead Island 2 actually turned out pretty darn good.
Yeah, and that went
Yeah, of
through
course, we can
multiple
also-
hands.
Yeah, we can also point to Duke Nukem Forever and show you how terrible it can be.
Oh, God.
My point is that we don't
Please
know.
don't. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We hope, but who knows?
Roll a percentile dice and see what your odds are.
Yes.
All right, well, let's move on. And let's talk about a couple of recent announcements. We're going to fire through these. A new Vampire the Masquerade game is in development, and it is not Bloodlines 2, unfortunately. But it is a really cool-looking VR game that's, honestly, I'm stoked for. It's called Vampire the Masquerade Justice. I don't know if the developer is... I don't know who the developer is, actually. I don't know. Developer Fast Travel Games. It's their second VR take on the open world of darkness. On the world of darkness in 2021, it released a VR exclusive, Wrath: The Oblivion Afterlife, which was apparently a creepy tale of undead mystery stuff. So this is only their second VR title.
Never heard of that one.
I've never heard of it either. I've never even heard of Fast Travel Games, but that's the people making this.
Neither did I.
It looks cool, man. I love VR titles. I love, like, the non-on-rails shooter or wave survival game. Like, give me real games in VR.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, that's exactly what I've wanted since I bought the PSVR 1.
Yeah.
I bought it specifically for Resident Evil 7, and it was a phenomenal experience.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever found anything that was quite as awesome as it after that. Don't get me wrong, they made a few of them. Skyrim was one of them, and that was a great game too, but I was never able to replay Skyrim, so that for me it was like, cool, it's Skyrim in VR, so I'm done with it.
Yeah. So...
And there were a couple others here and there, but ultimately it was mostly experiences, and I agree with you, we should have more that are not simply that.
Yeah, those are fun. Like the wave and battle sims are fun or whatever, but there needs to be some real story linear games. Not necessarily linear, but we've also got the announcement here of Oculus Quest 3. That's coming out. I don't think they released a date. Oh, I'm sorry. Coming this fall.
September.
Yeah, sometime this fall.
September, I believe.
Quest 2 is going to drop in price in response to the release of 3. I believe 3 was going to be $49.99.
It's going to drop in price after they raised the price like last year.
Yeah. $4.99 for the new Quest 3, which really looks like a solid headset. I have the Quest 2 myself. It's phenomenal. I love playing games on it. I love AirLink with it because the battery life on it is literally just long enough that I get a good gaming session in, and when I start to go like, oh, I don't, that VR sickness sets in, I can be like, oh, the battery's almost dead, time to take it off anyways. But having that true wireless experience and being able to AirLink to my PC and play Arizona Sunshine, Beat Saber, with The Walking Dead, it's so awesome being completely untethered. It's great. And the Quest 3 being 30% slimmer is wild to me. 40. Yeah, I said that before too. I said 30 before.
Earlier,
yeah. 40% slimmer. It has a full color pass through, which is awesome. That means they can do like AR games now.
Augmented reality.
Yeah. And the only concern I have, and it's not a very big one, but they are very vague on how much better the tech is in terms of battery life and optics. So it says the resolution is better. It doesn't clarify what that is. So
the only thing they say is double the processing power. That's like the only thing we know about as far as better hardware goes.
Yeah. And besides, 40% slimmer and stuff like that, and
Well, if you look at the price, it's like as it just said there, it's going to be $500, right? That's going to be a nice piece of tech, especially because $500 isn't nothing. However, when you look at, say, similar devices at similar prices, namely the PlayStation VR 2 at $550, there's absolutely no way the specs are going to be just as good. It's going to be impossible, especially in a contained device, or what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever. It's by itself, standalone. That's the word I'm looking for. So, I can imagine it being better than the Quest 2, but worse than the PSVR 2 as far as ultimate specs go.
What's the What's the resolution on the PSVR 2?
4K, both eyes.
Okay, yeah. I can't imagine it'll do that. I can tell you the Quest 2 was it 1440?
That I don't know. I haven't really
Quest 2.
I really want to get myself a Quest simply so I can have PCVR as well. But
it's sweet, man. It's real sweet.
It's just so hard to skip out on, say, Resident Evil and Horizon Zero Dawn, or not Zero Dawn, but Call of the Mountain. And
right.
Those various games they have, and the more people that support more devices, the more likely that they'll all be released everywhere. Really. Yeah. But that's why. I mean, just like having it console exclusives is the reason why you just own all the devices.
So the Quest 2 is 1832 by 1920, and it supports 60, 72, and 90 hertz. So not bad. A little bit above standard high D. Yeah, so it's slightly better than 2K. And you said it's 4K for the. Do you know what hertz it's at? What the refresh is on the PSVR 2?
I'm pretty sure it's 120 minutes.
Damn, that's actually really good. The PSVR 2, 2000 by 2040 OLED displays, 4K HDR, up to 120 FPS. Up to. So
I think maybe it was the first one that was required to be 120.
Yeah.
Either way, but you also got to consider the PSVR 2 also has haptic feedback. It also has the what do they call it, the eye sensors, the eye tracking.
Yep.
And there's something else. The foveated rendering. The foveated rendering is in itself an amazing piece of tech to add to VR. Which, if you don't know what that is, just for your reference or everyone else's reference, foveated rendering is in the real world with your real eyes. Wherever you're not looking is actually blurrier around your eyes. Basically your peripheral vision. It's blurrier because your brain doesn't need to focus on those things. So the PlayStation VR 2 does that. Whatever you're looking at on the screen is going to be a higher resolution than everything else that you're not specifically focused on. That way it can save processing power to make what you're looking at prettier. So it actually works so fast you cannot tell it's happening because the processing power of the PS5. But if someone is watching you on, say, the TV, they can see what you're not looking at is blurrier. So it's actually really freaking cool tech.
I gotta be honest.
It's awesome.
The VR 2 might be a console seller for me. Looking at this,
the VR 2 is amazing.
It first of all, Resident Evil 4 on VR is already maybe.
Resident Evil 8 as well.
I'm not a big fan of the new ones, man. I don't know. I like classic zombies. I'm weird that way. I guess you can't even say Resident Evil 4 is classic zombies, but
no, that was really the change.
yeah, it was. But 4 was just a fantastic game. So, and not to mention the Horizon VR game that definitely won't come to PC anytime soon. It will definitely look better on the PSVR 2. We'll see what it does, but I would be pretty willing to buy a PSVR 2 based on, what we see. I will say this, though. The Quest 3, as long as it has the same battery life as the Quest 2, I'm good to go. I love the battery life. I've never... It's a weird thing to say, right? It's a weird thing to say that, the device dying is a good thing, because as somebody who does get VR sickness after an extraordinary amount of time, I would say 2 to 3 hours, sometimes 4.
That's better than the 15 minutes you used to get.
Yeah. It's nice to know that, I have to put it down instead of just oh, I don't feel good, I'm just going to keep going kind of thing. So I do love that. And the wireless is... Dude, just wireless is so great. Just to spin around in circles, playing Robo Recall, that's really fun. So, but the sacrifice there is you don't have the processing power, the display capabilities that you do out of a dedicated hardware the way the PSVR 2 is.
Honestly, the only thing that really worries me about the Meta Quest 2 is that they changed the controller design. They changed it back to PlayStation VR 1 style, which is really weird because at this point before Meta Quest 3, all of the modern headsets had exactly the same controller design.
Yeah. And
that makes it really easy for developers to swap from one platform to the next, or have cross-platform, or whatever it may be. This, unless they somehow manage to have the same level of sensory devices or whatever cameras around the controller itself, so you can still get the same finger tracking, I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
It's definitely a weird design. Their little loop that they do is definitely weird, but it does say interact virtual worlds in amazing new ways with haptic feedback, adaptive trigger, precision tracking with finger touch detection. So, yeah.
I say it's there, but how do you get that when you don't have that ring around your fingers being able to track it in 3D? You know
Yeah.
what I mean, you'd only be able to track distance away from the controller for the most part.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like it's going to be worse detection than the previous model, than the Quest 2.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what ends up happening with it. I don't know that I'm going to run out there and buy a MetaQuest 3 the day it comes out, especially with, the Quest 2 is good. It's a solid headset. It's a great economy headset. It lets you get in the game for a relatively reasonable price, and with the price drop coming, it's going to be even more accessible. And the Quest 2 is great for anybody who's just an average dabbler, I think.
I would call it a price correction, because that's what it was before.
Right. Yeah. Definitely a price correction. But I'm curious to see how the Quest 3 does. I'm curious to see how it stacks up against the PSVR 2. I know it definitely won't compare in terms of resolution and things of that nature, but games catalog is what's going to do it for me, right? Like with PC, you just inherently have a much broader catalog of games. Now that said, you have some great exclusives coming to the PSVR 2. So that's the toss-up, right? Broader range or more targeted, refined experiences, right? So,
which is that's really the main difference. So there was the Quest gaming showcase or whatever the other day, and they announced actually a lot of really good games, and most of them were left ambiguous to if they're going to be exclusive to Quest or not. There was a few that were like, yep, we're definitely exclusive, but there was like 2, I think, something along those lines. So I would be willing to bet the majority of them will come to PlayStation, but so far PlayStation's only confirmed like 2 or 3 of them. So I don't know yet, but also my point... What was my point? I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, your point is it gives us a great segue, but go ahead and finish up.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't remember at this point, so let's just go ahead and segue.
The segue is that one of those games that is confirmed for the Quest is the Assassin's Creed VR game, which I don't have any footage of here because they haven't released it yet, unfortunately.
No. Yeah, they showed that off at the... They announced it at the Quest showcase, but they literally said, "Hey, we're making this. Come to our show on the 12th and see it."
Yeah. So
literally it.
So on June 12th, the Ubisoft show will be showing off Assassin's Creed Nexus VR, which is a weird title because I've been trying to understand what the Nexus is. The Nexus is a Ubisoft hub specifically for Assassin's Creed games.
And it was originally not understood to be a VR title. Everyone was expecting it to be essentially an Assassin's Creed live service.
A launcher was my understanding. Was the Nexus was supposed to be like the hub for all of the Assassin's Creed game as well as a game itself? I don't know. It's weird.
Exactly, but now it's a VR title, so that's weird because the way that they had announced it was that it was going to be a hub for all of the Assassin's Creeds, but you can't do that in VR because the majority of gamers aren't there.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm curious to see how they do an Assassin's Creed in VR. My guess is it's probably going to be kind of similar to Vampire the Masquerade Justice.
That would be the best way to do it, I would imagine.
Like Justice looks like it's an open world. It could be linear. It's very unclear. It's definitely, very early footage that we see for the gameplay in that trailer. But I'm really actually kind of looking forward to June 12th to find out more about Ubisoft's Nexus, and I'm hoping they show off maybe some of the other Assassin's Creed. We're finally getting Assassin's Creed in Japan. So we're getting a spiritual Tenchu successor, maybe, hopefully. I will mention that every fucking episode until this show goes off the air. So maybe a developer will hear it one day and we'll get a new fucking Tenchu. But hey, Tenchu.
He's been saying it every week for the past 15 years. Please do it.
For the love of God, shut this man up.
So what I was going to say was the Vampire the Masquerade. It very much reminds me of Dishonored. I can see that being a really good experience for VR as well as for Assassin's Creed VR.
Yeah.
So that'd be an interesting route for them to take.
Yeah, I think it could be cool. I love the Assassin's Creed franchise. Always have. kind of. I've loved what it was. I'm hoping we get back to where it was. Mirage looks like it's going the right direction. I'm very interested in Assassin's Creed. Oh God, what was it? Was it Witch Hunt? What was it? There was that weird one. They announced two of those projects they're working on.
I don't remember the title you're talking about, but it looks like it's set during the
Salem Witch Trials. Yeah, that looks freaking sweet. And then there's obviously the Japanese one, which, dude, we've been theorizing that Assassin's Creed going to Japan since literally the first game. When you get your Eagle Vision at the first game, I can't tell you how many hours I spent in that game at the end of the game just staring at the walls trying to figure out what all the stuff meant. And none of it has been implemented into any of the games at all. Like, none of the theories came out of that. So
super random side note. Do you think they're ever going to explain why the Eagles give you their vision, or how you manage to get Eagle Vision without using an eagle?
I think they're moving away from the overview one that they did in Origins and going back to the old school one, which the old school one they did explain, actually.
Did they? I guess I don't remember that.
Well, that's because they did it in a book.
That's why I didn't know.
So Ezio, kind of in a book, I can't remember which book it is, kind of on the same tangent, but Ezio describes it as not so much seeing with your eyes, but seeing the world with all your senses. So it's something that's inherited from the precursor race, and everyone is capable of it to more or less degree. Ezio ends up developing his... it's kind of like Kai and or Ki or whatever the fuck you want to call it in Dragon Ball Z, where even Earthlings can learn how to fly kind of thing. Everybody can tap into the Eagle Vision, but some people have more of it than others. And Ezio goes on to explain that he got to the point where he could sense people's heart rates and whether or not they were lying, as well as not necessarily precognition, but kind of through the Eagle Vision assess where a target was likely to go. So it was almost like a level of precognition as he got older. But yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, that's the level of nerd I am when it comes to Assassin's Creed, guys.
I actually read the Mass Effect book, and I thought that was pretty fantastic. It did a lot to explain the world in a way that the game didn't. Anyways, I think I don't think they're ever going to go back to that, like you said.
Yeah.
Especially because Mirage clearly has the Eagles as well. But it's also a more fun mechanic, honestly, to fly the Eagle around.
I prefer just hitting the button and seeing my targets and being able to decide for myself. I didn't really care for the Eagle flight kind of thing personally, but oh well. Take what you can get.
Get used to it, I guess.
Yep. Get used to it or stop playing the franchise. That's the way it goes. So any final thoughts on that before we move forward?
I'm really just ready to see what it is, because I really hope it's going to be on the PSVR 2. I don't have one, but I'm going to eventually.
Yeah.
So I really hope it goes there.
Yeah, Ubisoft also announced the Splinter Cell VR game at the same time, but that was canceled in 2022, which is disappointing. So I'm glad to see that this one survived, but I guess we'll see. We've got a couple more days. We've got 9 days. Jesus, math is hard. 9 days, and we will actually have an answer for that. So you can pretty much guarantee we'll be back here talking about it again once we do see it. So let's move on to the next showcase we have to talk about, and the potential next... Do I want to say potential next great RPG? Do I want to say that? I kind of want to say that. So,
the only problem with that is that's giving Xbox a lot of credit.
It is.
And I can't help but dump on them because they've had shit good for a long time.
Forza Horizon 3 was good.
It's okay. They're good at racing games.
Well, this is the racing game developer, you know.
Wait a minute, I thought it was a baseball developer.
No, this must be a different game. So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Fable is supposedly finally being shown off with something more than the trailer we had from 3 years ago at the upcoming Xbox conference. So we're finally getting more than the 30-second trailer we got from them back in 2018, I think it was. However long ago it was. They released this video you're seeing here now for our Twitch viewers. For those of you not watching Twitch, you can see this on our Twitch channel, also at youtube.com/@CoindropVods. It's a Twitter video of a guy following a trail of pixie dust to his computer monitor that says Xbox Game Showcase on the 11th.
Which isn't a confirmation, but what the fuck else could they be making that has a whole bunch of fairy dust?
They're clearly playing
the last trailer.
Yeah,
when the last trailer was fairies.
And
it's pretty much nothing else it could be.
And it's Fable music. It's Fable music.
Fair enough. There's that too.
Yeah.
The only other thing that it could potentially be is that I'm trying to remember the developer's name. Rare. Is it Rare?
Rare.
Maybe it's not Rare. It might not be Rare. It's that man. It's been in such shit development state for so long that I can't even remember the name of it anymore. it was like a fantasy game with a almost Fortnite-ish look to it.
Scalebound?
That Xbox announced.
Was it Scalebound? No.
No. Scalebound was I don't know, a dragon type game.
Yeah, but it was. Anyways, it's definitely not that because they're playing. They're playing Fable music in that Twitter ad thing. But
yeah, it's not a confirmation, but in this case, it might as well be.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll see something on that. Now, what I will say, hopefully we don't see what's on the screen now, because this was the previous Fable project, which was Fable Legends, and it was so poorly received they canned the fucking project because it was a stupid ass 4v1 multiplayer PvP game that was just so far away from what Fable is and what Fable does great that it was shut down because everybody's like, what the fuck are you doing to this franchise?
You know what the funny thing about this particular project is, though, even though it was canceled, there's a VR game that's basically this that recently came out called Demio, and it's actually pretty damn good. It's D&D. It's straight D&D, but one person plays the dungeon master, who's obviously the evil guy, and the other people are the players, and it's actually really good. So this could have been that, except for obviously not VR. But it definitely was one of those things like, what the fuck are you doing with Fable? What's wrong with you? No, don't do that. No. And the game before this was also shit too. It was a Kinect game, wasn't it?
Oh god, yeah. It was the it's not on rails, it's on rails.
Yeah.
Peter Molyneux's insisting it wasn't on rails as we're looking at the footage going, bro, it's on rails. What are you? Anyways.
Yeah. Didn't they also release like a card game too or something?
So the card game was a predecessor to 2, where you could earn like gold as well as exclusive rewards that you could claim in Fable 2. So there was that. I don't know if that still exists, if it was a pre-order thing. I can't remember. I just remember playing it, and it was a pain in the ass to try and get the rewards. But here's the thing.
Quick question. Do you know if Peter Molyneux made number 3, or did he quit at number 2?
No, he did.
So basically, at this point, this will be the first Fable game without him.
Correct.
Hopefully, it'll be something that doesn't get instantly criticized by the creator immediately.
Yeah, we'll see. But here's the thing: is Fable Legends would have been great as a game by any other name. But like we talked about a couple episodes with franchises, names carry weight. And when you take names like Assassin's Creed and completely alter what the game is, when you take the game like Fable and you completely alter the foundation of the game, when you take a game like Bayonetta and completely alter the foundation of the game, you're gonna.
That game was actually really well received.
I'm not saying it wasn't a great game. I'm saying it was a very risky choice, and in the past doesn't pay off for a lot of developers. I'm glad it paid off for Platinum Games and the developers of Bayonetta. I wish them all the success. No hard feelings at all. I'm not a big fan of the franchise anyways, so do what you want to do. It's your IP. However, understand that what you're doing...
Kind of strange, considering it's just Devil May Cry with a girl.
Yeah, I don't know. Didn't it like release on Wii or something at some point?
It was the first one was originally PlayStation 3 and 360, and then for whatever reason Capcom canceled it, and then Nintendo bought it, and that they have made it with I can't remember the developer. I always forget the damn developer's name.
Platinum Games. Anyways, it's unimportant, but But I have this weird thing where I'm like, oh, this is a clone of, and then I lose interest. Even if the game does it better, if it is so clear to me that it's a clone of a game that I do love, I just lose interest. I know. No, Platinum Games didn't make Devil May Cry.
No,
Capcom makes
the
Devil May Cry.
original Bayonetta. The original Bayonetta.
Oh,
was made by
yeah,
them.
you're right. I did like the
Was
first
made
one.
by-
I actually did like the first
They do
Bayonetta.
everything.
Yeah. But anyways, that's besides the point. When you take these franchises and you go in a drastically different direction, it's a risk. And in the past, it hasn't happened in a good way for a lot of people.
That's why those drastic different directions need to be like spin-offs on the side.
Yeah.
Still have your main ones, but have your off to the side.
Well, that's what they tried to do with Fable Legends, but everybody was expecting a Fable 4, right? So I think that was the big deal. Now, here's the question, though, right? So here's the bottom line. Do we think a developer who has done only driving racing games, arcadey sim-like racing games, is going to do a good action RPG that has tongue-in-cheek humor with voices like John Cleese?
The only developer I can think of that's totally changed their genre expertise is Guerrilla Games.
Yeah.
And they did a ridiculously phenomenal job with Horizon. Obviously, it's extremely popular. It's one of Sony's biggest platform IPs.
I would
Can
argue
other developers do so?
I would argue Naughty Dog 2 to a lesser extent. So they went from Jack and Daxter 3, right? Jack 3, which was an open world kind of GTA-ish game, to a more chapter episodic like third person shooter.
I would only disagree because Jack and Daxter had guns too, and yes, it is a more linear experience in Uncharted than it is Jack and Daxter, but they're still essentially and fundamentally the same as the way, given the way they play.
Sure.
Obviously, one's realistic, one's not, but that's not a total genre change.
Mike makes a good point here in chat, says that Black Box did Need for Speed and then did the Skate games. So that's a pretty substantial shift in gameplay, design, all of that. And Skate was fantastic. Yeah. So
I will give them that. Like I said, the only one I could think of was Guerrilla Games. It does happen from time to time, but not often.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen very often very well.
Yeah. So,
I want to say, if I remember correctly, the game I mentioned earlier of Dead Island 2 was originally, I think that might have been the baseball developer. That was the original developer for it. So like the first one of the 3 or 4 was supposed to be made by guys who only made baseball games. Obviously that didn't work out. So that's one example. But just these things are not set in stone. Obviously you can swap over to a genre and do well.
Yeah.
Who knows? I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt because I really like Fable.
I just... That's the thing, right? So that's the key, right? Is who is developing this game? What is the team comprised of? Is this guys who are fans of the Fable franchise? Or is this just something they decided to pivot to because they were done with doing racing games, right? So like that's where a lot of that concern for me comes in. And we'll get an answer here on the 11th. But I don't know.
I don't think they're done with Forza. I think they're still doing that.
Definitely not.
They obviously Forza is easy money for them as a developer, so they're going to keep doing so.
Yeah. And Horizon is a fantastic, like, it feels that niche for the old Rockstar Midnight Club for me personally.
I also would personally, but because I don't care for sim games, but I would say Horizon is the better of the two Forza.
I would agree. I prefer arcadey racers over sim racers.
What I really hope for in the new Fable really is for them to go back to what made the original great, in the sense of your choices have actual consequences, and you can choose to be good or evil.
Yeah.
Really, those simple fundamental axioms are what matters, and I hope they stick to them.
Yeah, I agree, and honestly, it doesn't even have to be deep choices that matter. I liked my favorite part of Fable was that there were choices that the game did branch, and we've seen that in a lot of games. There's a ton of games that do that and do it really well. Supermassive does it fantastically. But what really drove me into the Fable games was the aging and your character reflecting your choices. That drove me into the Fable games. Watching your character go from a child all the way up to a 60-year-old 20-year-old man and like growing through the game and watching him physically change as you level up and stuff, a la kind of like Crackdown, which obviously stole that kind of idea, right? But like that capability of watching your character change over the game and grow these demonic horns or start to become more angelic like, or however it plays out, that and the tongue-in-cheek British humor are musts, right? Like that is the core of Fable.
Honestly, the only thing I'm desperate for them not to do is because Fable 1, 2, and 3 were all basically the same game. 3 was the only one that became different halfway through.
Yeah.
Fable 2 was literally a rehash of 1 with a slightly different storytelling. Anyways, don't tell the same fucking Fable again.
Yeah.
Give me a different story. Give me those same axioms like I asked for earlier, and along with what you were saying, but stop telling that same damn story.
Yeah.
Give me a different fantasy.
I would say part of what makes it great, though, is its tropiness, too. Because, again, it goes back to that tongue-in-cheek humor. So you got to have a little bit of those tropes in there, right? You got to have the hero get captured by the bad guy and go through a year or two in prison or yada, 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 or whatever. And you know, somebody you trust turns out to be not a so good a guy. But, yeah, I just want to see... I don't know. I want to see them do something really... their own. I want to see them take the franchise and I guess in a way, kind of like we talked about the last episode, apply the delta factor to it, right? Like the Greek letter delta, right, means like change without changing the structure or something like that. Is what we talked about. So give it the delta, man. Give it some tweak that makes it feel like your game, but in a respectful way to its origins, I guess.
I'm gonna derail the current conversation because you brought it up. The delta factor. Konami actually announced just recently, like yesterday or the day before, that they are not going to redo the voice acting for the game. They're going to reuse all the old voice acting.
Interesting.
Which sounds extremely limiting to me because that doesn't really allow them to add to it the way Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Right.
So it almost sounds to me like they're going to be really careful and just make everything pretty, which is kind of unfortunate if that's the case.
Yeah, it's not so much of a rehash then, or it's more of a rehash than a reimagining, which is a little disappointing because I'd love to see it expanded, but that's okay. Tim, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up for the night?
No, honestly, I don't think I really do. I'm just ready for more of these showcases to happen, and we can have more to talk about.
Yeah, we will have a lot more. June 12th, June 11th, Xbox and Ubisoft on those days. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Fable has to show us. So there will be an after party for those wanting to watch, though we will not be playing together. Tim's going to be playing whatever Tim decides to play, if he decides to play anything, and I will be playing Diablo 4 because I have early access, and I'm playing hardcore and already lost my character once. So, well, hey, man, look. I'm just kidding. So I'll be playing some Diablo 4 in a bit, guys. We'll see you back here in about an hour. Thanks for listening, and for our Patreon listeners, we'll see you in just a bit.